Hey everybody, welcome to episode 14. So in episode 14, we're going to get this frickin' radio working. I'm only kidding. So here's what I did. I removed all the capacitors that were here and here. I removed all the resistors I put in. I removed the choke. I've got a interstage coil here, which I'm going to redo. And I am just simply going to trace every wire from every socket. And I'm going to go on the schematic, which I printed out extra large, like so. And I am going to track every wire on the schematic. Once I get all that done, then all that's going to be left to do is put the resistors that are needed, and there's really only two that I've taken out, and the capacitors. So we're going to just do a complete start from scratch. What I did here in this radio is I assumed that the connections that they were good, so that's why I attached all the capacitors. Well, that's a bad move. Never trust someone's work, which I'm not going to. So that's going to be the plan. The plan is going to be to check all the wires that are here. I've got all the tubes marked. Here's a 27, here's a 35, 24A, 27, 35, 247s. I'm going to focus on this section, not here right now. That's going to include the top of the cans, the whole 9 yards. I've also gone on the schematic and indicated which coils are which, and that was fairly simple now that I think about it. All I really had to do is look at the part numbers that are listed here and look at the parts list, and it tells you what kind of coil it is. So I have an antenna coil, an interstage coil, an RF coil, an IF coil, and a plate choke, and then down here I have an oscillator. So by giving this information, I'm going to be able to figure out what's going on. You'll also notice this schematic is not so busy. I've removed all the filament wires that were on here, and I've simply denoted each one with an F, and then coming right here off the transformer, that's where the filament lines are. So I've gotten rid of all that noise, so I'll be able to easily, I hope, go through this and figure it out. So I'm not going to do that on camera. Anybody could do that. So I'm just going to start tracing, and I will come back and let you know where we are. One last thing before we move is this can that I took out. It says it has a 0.5 and a 0.1. There's only 2 connections on it, and what I've determined is that they had everything connected to the 0.1. Not everything, but most of the connections that terminate here all went to the same cap. So I may restuff this and just mount it back up over here where it belongs. This way it'll be neater. We'll see. I got to think about that. I just have to put it on the barbecue for a few minutes and that tar will come out of there. But I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm going to worry about wiring. Okay? So again, everything from here back is going to get checked. I did leave the wires connected to the cans, and I'll see where they need to go. And I may start connecting things as I need to. But that is going to be the plan. One other thing I'll mention, which I think is an issue, but I'm not sure. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. Let me show you. When I put the terminal strip here, I didn't scrape this. Right? I mean, I'm sure it was making a good connection, but it probably wasn't good enough. So that has something to do with the hum I was getting. So we'll fix that up as well. Anyway, let me get moving on this, and we'll come back and show you progress on the schematic. The other thing I should mention is that instead of just checking the wires and marking them, I'm going to do a continuity test on this because these are solid core wires. And there could be a broken wire in there that I just don't know about. So as I'm checking each point-to-point connection, I'm just going to ohm it out and see what I get. So I should mention that too. Be back. Okay, well I've just about finished tracing out all these wires. These are all the wires that I can trace. Remember, a lot of this is point-to-point, so when you take out resistors and caps, you basically lose connections. But the wiring in here checks out so far. So I haven't found anything that's miswired, so I think I've got that part good. So now, it's just a matter of starting to put in the resistors and the capacitors. I'm not going to do what I did last time. I'm going to follow the schematic and make sure that it's in the right place. So let me go start that. Be back. Okay, we're making slow and steady progress here. I'll show you on the schematic where we are, but essentially we have our tone control connected the right way. We have our 1 meg resistor right here, and I'll show you on the schematic where that is. This is 150K. This is a 0.1 cap, another 0.1 cap. That goes to the output transformer. and we're starting to work on this section here, but we're not quite done yet. So let me show you where we are on the schematic, just to make sure we're following along. So everything is rewired here. This 27 tube has the plate attached. It goes through this choke, goes through this .05 cap. That's the tone control that I showed you right here. It goes down through this this .01. I only have one side connected at the moment. This should be a straight line, by the way. I haven't connected the cathode yet of the 27. There's another cap that goes there. But just continuing along, the IF coil is done. I've got this 150K resistor that goes right here, which also connects to this 1 meg resistor, which connects to a .1 cap, which goes up to the screen of the 24, and of course it goes through the RF coil. So all of this is done with the exception of a few things. You know, again, we have a cap here that has to get done, but we're working our way backwards. So the next thing that I'm going to do, obviously, is I have to take a look at the screen of this 35, because according to the schematic, there's a wire that goes from the screen of the 35 all the way across down to the screen of the other 35. And there's no wire there, so we're going to put that in. That could be a part of my problem. So we're going to install that wire. And it also continues downward and comes down here and goes to the oscillator. So we're going to get all that, and you can't see that, it's off camera, but it goes down to the oscillator right here at this connection point. We also, on the oscillator section, we've included this .1 cap right here. That's done. We've got everything connected from a screen perspective, and we're still working through some of this section as well. So we're making good progress. We also have this this 10K resistor in place, and I can show you where that is. That's right here. This is the 10K resistor, and this is the .1 cap that's right underneath it. So those two are in place. So basically, I'm not paying any attention to where these components were placed before. I'm obviously trying to be careful of lead dress and don't have wires running all over the place. But I'd say the biggest difference that I found so far, and I'm going to show you on the schematic in a second. So when I got this radio, this .05 cap, which is on the tone control, was on the center, the wiper, okay, and it was going right down here to the IF can. There was a wire on the end, right here, going directly to this choke. Well, when you look at the schematic, it's not how it's wired. So you'll see here, it comes off the plate. There's a connection here, it goes down to that .005, which is this one right here. It goes through the choke, and then it goes to this .05 right here. And then it continues on to the end of the wiper. I'm sorry, the end of the potentiometer. The wiper, which is right here, connects to the other end of this transformer, comes down here and connects to a 1.1 microfarad cap, and then continues along here. So I've wired this thing according to the schematic. I'm not wiring it the way it was. I have to keep reminding myself of that, because that's what's been driving me nuts for the last 2 weeks on this thing. So we're going to continue along that path. I'm following the schematic. At some point, this schematic, I'm sure, worked. So we're gonna follow along and do the same thing. All right. Again, we're trying to be neat. I'm trying to be respectful of, you know, noise and stuff. I'm not sure how quiet this radio is. I've never heard one play, so we're going to find out. All right, let me stop and we'll keep moving along. Okay, we're back. Everything has been properly rewired. I've got my my schematic here, all full of nice orange. And one thing I did on this is I followed the schematic to a T. So in other words, we've got these .25s here. There's one here and there's one here. And if you remember, the can that I took out of there didn't have any. Well, I put .25s in there. I followed the schematic to a T. So I didn't do anything that was left over. So essentially I did a rewire, right, of the whole radio, with the exception of the filaments, because we know that works. So everything is marked. I've got every capacitor marked with a number, and it corresponds to the schematic, so I know exactly what sections are which. And we're about ready to do our first power up. So let me get that set up, and I'll be back, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so before we light this thing up, a couple of other things I want to make sure I told you I did. Before I put those terminal strips back in, I made sure that I sanded the metal down to the bare metal, so I have good ground connection. I think that was some of my problem. Probably why I was getting some hum. And that probably explains that. And again, you know, I didn't wire it exactly the way it was. I wired it the way I see it. And that's okay. I'll have to see if the lead dress means anything. But I'm not going to worry about that right now. So I have the Variac on. And I'm going to bring it up on a Variac simply because this is the first time I'm bringing it up. I don't foresee any problems, but we're going to do it anyway. So let's go. Here we go. Turn the power on. Okay, I see a little bit of a light glowing there on the dial lamp. We're at 40 volts. Our B plus is starting to climb. Let's go to 60. Here comes our B plus. No smoke yet. I don't have an antenna connected, but that's okay. Let's go to 80. Okay, B plus is climbing nicely. My battery just died. I didn't cut the shot away, so we're still at 80 volts. I'm going to bring it up to 100. B plus is hanging around 285. Here's some noise. Another speaker. 115. It's promising. Let's see what happens if we throw a signal generator on the antenna. Sounds like I'm getting some better sound than I got before. Let's throw this on the antenna. I think that IF can is going to have to be tuned a little bit. So I'm going to turn the camera off, I'm going to tune it, but I'm getting definitely something different out of this radio right now, which is good. I'll be right back. Alright, well here's our update. So I have the signal generator connected to the antenna, and as you can hear, I'm getting something through the speaker. Alright, this is good. Tuning dial has a little impact. It gets a little weaker as I turn it. I'm turning it right now. Right now it's all the way closed. We're going to open it. It gets a little weak. That's good. Volume control. If I put the volume control all the way open, the sound goes away. If I bring it the opposite end right before the power switch engages, it's loudest. Okay? Here's the tone control. Tone control all the way in one direction diminishes. The other direction makes it loud. So I'm getting a signal through the amp here, right? So that's good. I mean, through the radio. That's really good. So now I need to understand how to tune this CAN, this IF transformer right here. That's the issue, right? There's two screws. Right here, there's one. Let me move in a little bit. There's a screw right here, and there's a screw right under here. And you basically just have to turn it. And you have to tune that to 175 kilocycles. That's what the peak frequency is of the radio. So what I'm going to try, two things I'm going to do first. One is I'm going to take all the voltages in the tubes and see where we are. And then I'm going to put the frequency counter on 175 kilocycles. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. Alright, so I'm going to set my frequency signal generator to 175 kilocycles, and I'm going to see if I can tune around here and get it. It's going to be hard to hear it because 175 kilocycles, I believe, is not a tone that you could hear easily. But I'll figure out how to do that. There may be a setting, a voltage reading that I can get, that I can figure out how to dial that in. But we'll play around. So right now my signal generator is not on 455, by the way. It's currently on 310, 20, 30, 340. So right now I'm set for 340 kilocycles. And I believe if I turn this while that's there, it should, if I can get it to diminish and lower, I may be able to bring it down, right? So my signal generator has increments of 100 to 300, 300 to 1,000. So right now, this is the loudest. Okay, with the gang all the way closed. Tone. Okay, so I'm going to turn this a little bit. Let's see what happens. Let's see if I can get it to go away, or a little lower. It's not really doing anything. I'm not going to mess around too much with this until I check the voltages. Yeah, so turning this doesn't really do much of a difference. Let me just close these all the way. And we're going to have to start from 0, basically. I've never done one of these before, guys, so I have no clue what I'm doing. But I'm going to use, you know, a little bit of logic here. Okay, that's all closed. One last thing I'm going to do before I put the voltages here. Let's see if I can check the oscillator. So let me get a radio and I'll be right back. Okay, I have a radio here. And I've got the signal to come through the radio. Somehow. I guess that means it's oscillating, right? So I guess that's a good sign. So the actual signal from the signal generator is going through the radio and being transmitted here. So that's a good sign, I think. I have it just slightly off station, and as I turn the dial, you can hear that. Alright, we're going to stop that. Interesting, sounds like a helicopter. Alright, we're going to turn that off. And we're going to check the voltages, and then we're going to try to do an alignment on this thing. I'm going to follow the instructions to the T and see if I can do an alignment. I think it's close. I'm pretty sure the radio is doing what it's supposed to do as far as the, you know, the sections, right? The antenna, interstage, RF, IF. Let's see what happens. So I'll be back. Okay, so let's talk about where we are. So I'm still having trouble with this thing. I can't get this thing aligned right. I've tried a few things. I do have an antenna connected to it. It's a short, fairly, I would say, a long wire than normal. It's a long wire antenna, not picking up any stations. I do have a signal generator going, and I currently have it set to 350 kilohertz, and I have it connected to the antenna coil. And as you can hear, I am getting something through the radio, and it's you know, not loud, but it's there. If I turn the tuning dial, it does get a little louder. So so it's doing something, right? The question is it oscillating? That's the real question. If I tune this can right here, which I'll show you, I can hear a noticeable difference. Now, I'm not doing this scientifically, obviously. I don't have meters on here and stuff the way you're supposed to do it. But if I play with this, I'll get noise on the radio, which is a little baffling to me. So let's see if we can show you what that looks like. There you go. So I'm getting some kind of noise here when I tune this thing, and I can tune the noise actually and make it go away. So the coil checks out good. And I think I have a ground problem or something, because when I touch the chassis, I've got something going on there I have to look at. But if I tune that just a little bit, that noise goes away, and you can hear the beep. And if I turn the dial, it gets faint. Go back there, it gets louder. I also have a problem with my volume control. So my volume control, if I open it up all the way, silent. If I turn back slowly, I start to get the beep. And then it only works when it's all the way down, not when it's all the way up. So a few things to do there. But let me show you on the schematic what I did a little bit differently on this one. Let me power this down. So on the volume control itself, okay, I actually connected this 1500 ohm resistor, 15K I mean, directly to the one end of the pot. The other end goes up to the antenna coil right here, and the center just goes to ground. I mean, that's essentially what I've done, right? So there's no magic involved. Now I suppose I could put a capacitor in here to ground, and maybe that's why I'm getting some noise there. I'll have to think about that. But yeah, so it's a little bit flaky, but I am getting a signal all the way through. So, so you know, it is better than it was. So I'm actually able to make some noise here. I need to figure out how to tune this can, right? So what I think I'm going to do is I have a signal generator that I can put to 175 kilocycles or kilohertz. I can put a meter on the cathode of the 24A tube, which is the first detector, and I believe if I put a meter on there, I should get about 6.8 volt, about something like that, 7 volts. And if I understand this correctly, when I tune this correctly, when I have the volume all the way up, the voltage should fluctuate, and peak voltage would indicate it's tuned correctly. I'm not going to connect the signal generator directly to the tube. I'm going to use a coil. I'm going to use the inductive method. This way I don't connect anything to the radio, and I'm actually just going to use a coil of wire like this and just kind of like so, right? Just kind of pop it over there right next to the tube, and see if I can get this thing aligned correctly. So I think I'm relatively close. Got a free bird if anybody wants one. I think I'm relatively close, so I'm going to keep playing with this. I'll put this video up for now, and honestly I hope some of you had some good suggestions for me, so I really appreciate that. And I'll keep playing along, and I should be really close though. I think the wiring problems have been resolved. I know that I've got everything in the right place now, which is good. Now it's just a question of getting this thing aligned correctly, and figuring out how to tune this thing. One other note, when I put the signal generator on it, if I put the signal generator on 455 kilohertz, it's not very loud. If I put it to 350, it's really loud through the radio. I know this radio is 175. If I go below 350, I get 0, right? So there's somewhere in here, it's tuned somewhere to 350. I don't know how, and if I turn this, it doesn't really matter if I adjust. So I got to think about that too. So anyway, I'm going to stop this video here, and then I'm going to keep plugging along. I'll see you guys in episode 15, I think. See you later.